This is the Little Moments Count radio podcast, created in partnership with community radio stations throughout Minnesota. Each episode, you'll hear interviews with early childhood experts on how to support the important brain development that takes place in the first 1,000 days of life, just through little moments every day. Learn more at littlemomentscount.org/podcast.
Good day to be Indigenous.
Get up, stand up.
They are going to become more brutal.
Couldn't cut, any cut gave me.
Because all the hippies were trying to be Indians anyway.
They're going to become more repressive because it's a matter of dollars and their illusionary concepts of power.
Hey, Victor.
We must live in balance with the earth.
And also with recent happenings at Wounded Knee.
I am awake.
Welcome to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and I'm your host, Wakanja Hade. Hey, Kadagi, to all my friends and relatives in four directions. You are listening to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and I'm your host, Robert Pilot, and here with Wendy Pilot and Ogama with the news. We discuss local and national Native news and events, and as you know, Wendy, Native issues are human issues. And human issues are Native issues. Hey, we're here with Barb Fabre, and she is the CEO of Indigenous Visioning and All Nations Rise. Barb, I'd love you to introduce yourself. And first, before you do, I just want to say Native Roots is really, radio is really excited to partner with you with the Little Moment Count to host conversations focused on early childhood development, which is just so super, super important. So, Barb, please introduce yourself.
Bonjour, everybody. Thank you, and I'm so excited to be on here. My name is Barb Fabre, and I'm an Ojibwe member of the White Earth Nation here in beautiful Minnesota. And I am CEO of Indigenous Visioning and president of the new All Nations Rise nonprofit to work with tribes in tribal communities to improve circumstances for our families and increase opportunities and create healthy families, healthy children, and healthy communities.
So can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do? You know, this is a big, big subject and really big in Indian country that we really need to pay attention to.
Yeah, definitely. So I worked for my tribe for about 30 years. And in that capacity, a lot of it was around early childhood. I also worked for Indian Child Welfare, and I seen the conditions our families are facing when they go through the system. And you know, I always wondered when we had to remove a child from their home, no matter what the circumstances, that child still loved their mom, their dad, and vice versa. So I knew I wanted to be farther up in the river to prevent that. So I started to work in the early childhood field where we love to empower parents with information around brain development and child development. And we were so serious about it. In 2001, we started what we thought was going to be a little training, turned out to be a national brain development conference. It was the Communities Collaborative Brain Development Conference, and I ran it for 17 years. And just the information that we gained from that was just, it changed my life. And when we know that children, you know, from birth to 3, that's where they're really learning. That's where their brains are formed. And then 0 to 5, it's critical. I know one of our presenters, Dr. Todd Risley, he wrote a book on that, on meaningful differences. And in that book, it literally changed my my view of things. So it had children from high-income families, middle-income families arrive at kindergarten with 35 to 40,000 word vocabulary, which is fabulous. However, children from low income and children of color, they're arriving at school with 3,000 to 4,000 words. So
Wow.
that's where our achievement gaps are starting.
Well, and is some of that where our children aren't being read to? Our parents are so tired. There's all these things going on that they're trying to put food on the table, and they're not really possibly sitting down and reading with them. Or where are the big issues on this?
Well, you're absolutely right. Families are just trying to make ends meet and get the necessities done. And so little moments count. When I became a member of that many years ago, I was drawn to it because it is so basic and so simple, but also important for a child. So even if parents don't have time to read a book, that's fine. There's so many things, like if you're cooking supper, allowing children to cook supper and talking to them, singing to them, that 0 to 3 is so critical. It develops their brain and their language, and so the more they're like sponges, their little brains are sponges, and in that time they need everybody around them to talk to them, to play, sing, anything, to get that vocabulary up.
It's interesting because Wendy and I have two godchildren that speak Spanish and English. Mm-hmm. And what was amazing to me is the father speaks Spanish to him and the mother speaks English, but she speaks Spanish too. And what's amazing to me is that they didn't talk for a very long time. So this goes into what you're saying. Their brain was like getting connected, and all of a sudden, when they did start talking, they were fluent Spanish and English speaking. It was crazy.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and our kids pick up our language. Of course, we all know the harmful effects of historical trauma and the boarding school era. Mm-hmm. And so, that we're also dealing with that, and we don't even know it. And so the school system, the education system, it's not a trusted place for us. And so, and then that's why, those first 5 years when the child is at home, and that's where little moments really want to focus on. And so before they get school, we need grandmas, grandpas, brothers, sisters, parents just to read and talk and sing. Little Moments provides a lot of opportunities, a lot of information to parents and caregivers about it. And so, that's why I fell in love with them, because they are spot on about making a difference in a child's life and leveling the playing field. And so, we don't have to have a degree. We don't have to have, any kind of college degree to read to our kids. And just, even doing laundry, talking about the colors, counting the socks, it's very simple, basic stuff, but it's so impactful.
Wow. Ogama, you got a question?
I just read something recently and it made me laugh, and I can't remember where I read it, but it said if it doesn't matter whether you sing your child Mary Had a Little Lamb or Snoop Dogg, as long as they're getting the interaction with you, that's what counts. It doesn't have to be perfect. And I thought that made it really accessible for people. And that's exactly what you're talking about. It doesn't have to be structured necessarily.
Right. And the neurons in that time period, they're connecting, and that's when they're most active. And as the child gets older, it starts to be less active and less connection. So that's why those first 5 years are so important, because it's supporting those connections, and just really so beneficial. I know, and when we talk to parents, in my previous position, we gave away thousands and thousands of books to families. And we realized that some of the families may not been able to read it. And so, and we just said, make up your own story. You don't have to read the words on the page. Make up your own story that goes with the picture.
And Wendy here with our godchild too has read stories for our godchildren, especially during COVID, and recorded them and sent them to them. And I think one of them was a little scary, Wendy, but it was still, they loved it. And that's what you're talking about. Hey, do you have time? I'd really like to, we got to take a break here pretty soon. And I'd like to just talk to you about maybe what the step 1, step 2, and how people can get help. I know we have, for more information, you can visit at littlemomentscount.org, and that's ORG. Let's talk a little bit about your organization again, and a little bit more about how this really works.
Yeah, I'd like to know do people find you? Are you out in the community finding parents, and how that works?
Yeah, they can go to our website to contact me, indigenousvisioning.com. And happy to connect you to resources, and that's what we do. Our organization works within tribal communities to support children and families. So
perfect. We'll be right back. Stay with us, please, Barb. Okay. All right.
Okay,
you're listening.
I'm here.
All right, you're listening to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake.
This is Winona LaDuke of Honor the Earth, and you're listening to Native Roots Radio. I'm Awake.
Welcome back to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and this is Robert Pilot.
This portion of the show is brought to you by Little Moments Counts. Little Moments Count is a statewide collaborative focus program on helping parents and caregivers learn about the importance of brain development in the first 3 years of life.
Wow. Great read, Wendy. Awesome. Hey, this is Robert Pilot, and we're with Barb Fabre, and she's the CEO of Indigenous Visioning and All Nations Rise, and we're talking about Little Moments Count. And I have a really quick question because, Barb, I'm not sure if you know this, but we're on quite a few channels across the country live. We're in Wisconsin big time, and Chicago and Michigan and Milwaukee and and Chicago. I'm naming the same places like there's more of them, but I just named a whole bunch of the same places. But how they can get in touch with you at littlemomentscount.org, and that's anywhere in the country, right? That can get a hold of you.
Yeah, pretty much. The campaign is in Minnesota, Western Wisconsin, Twin Cities, Metro, but just about anywhere these days you can contact our Reach Little Moments Count. And our goal on Little Moments Count is to help parents and influencers like childcare, shelters, libraries, healthcare, religious organizations, and more understand why playing and talking, reading, singing with children is so crucial to building brain power and increasing equity. We talked about the achievement gap. So we want advocates and people to help us take action and recognize that, it is so critical to our child's development. And yes, you can go to littlemomentscount.org, and they have parenting resources. They have awesome resources on anti-racism, COVID-19, and activity sheets. And there's information on their texting program. And I really encourage people to. I'm on that, and I don't have little kids. I have grandchildren, but I'm on that texting program, and it's just amazing. You just get these simple texts that are motivational and easy to read.
Wow. Ogama, do you have a question about those texts?
No question other than that I have my phone out and I'm signing up for those right now. I didn't know that this existed. My first child is 9. But now that I have a second child, I'm really excited to have this to just even remind me to take that extra time with her every day to read her a story or to sing her a song or narrate what I'm doing as an adult or, a pretend adult.
Absolutely.
It's so important, Barb, what you're talking about, because one statement you made in the last segment with information is king. And like what your statement was, we didn't even know that we are being short-sighted and these things that were bad that happened to us, whether it was these residential schools or just genocide in general, that we have this deep, and we're not the only ones, but we're talking specifically about Native Americans right now. We have this deep hurt that we don't understand where it's from. And I'm an old high school teacher, and I've seen it, and I try to give our kids positive influence and also know that it's not a race, that these kids will figure it out and they're good people. But this being traumatized, like you talked about earlier, is just we don't even know it half the time.
Well, and then if a child is showing up at kindergarten and they're not ready, they're traumatized again because they're behind, behind their peers, and it's about catching up. It's not about learning. It's about catching up.
Wow, really good points. Wen, do you have any questions or anything? Because
no,
that's
I just
amazing.
think I was just reading an article about when your baby falls asleep, wait until they're like really, really sleeping, like after 2 hours when they're in their REM sleep, and give them positive reinforcement during that time. Like if they're having trouble at school with, something,
right.
You could just like talk to them and tell them tomorrow you're going to have a great day at school and things are going to be okay.
Mm-hmm.
You just stay positive. You're terrific. And just give them that positive reinforcement while they're sleeping. And it's supposed to resonate with them. So when they wake up in the morning, it's kind of like, in their brain. So I thought that was very interesting.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, I think we all need that.
Yeah,
I think we all do too.
Right. Well, I was thinking when you said that, I had that almost when I was older, and I didn't know any better, and I believed the person that I could do anything I wanted to. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So it takes a village. I hate to say that, but that's the way. But I don't hate to say this. That's the way Native American communities are. We all want to help raise our kids. Like I have aunties and gagas and nannies that go, that are just awesome in my life, and they're not in particular related to me, but yes, they are in a good way.
Oh, definitely. And I remember as a child and hearing, it was kind of normal for children to be seen and not heard. I mean, it's just... because everybody had rules and jobs and duties, and we had a village to take care of. Well, it's kind of, we've pivoted from that because we know about brain development and how important that is. And for years, people just didn't think that reading to an infant, he's sleeping or he can't understand my words. Well, actually, those words, just talking to him every day is, having those neurons just connect like crazy. So, reading it to infants is so important. I can't stress it. So like I said, I was so moved, and so many of my team, my program, were moved that we needed to bring that information to our little rural reservation. And so for 17 years I ran it, we had national speakers come to this little reservation, like the late Todd Risley. And, it's just, and we had anywhere from 800 to 1,200 people come from all over Minnesota and the tri-state area. And because it was such a need, and this was back in the early 2000s when brain development was just, really up and coming. And so, read the research. It's out there, and it's important.
One of our loyal listeners, and I should say a person that watches us on Facebook, Nina said, babies know what you're saying before they can talk. And that's so important to know because, like you said, before the 2000s, we didn't believe that.
Mm-hmm. Right. And so, and it doesn't have to be complicated. Again, going back to, if a parent can't read, well, that's okay. They can talk, they can sing, and just having those moments, little moments with the littles.
I see what you did there. Good one. And Alice, one of our great listeners, too. Lullabies are so important and can be so powerful, healing, and teach such important ways. That is so true, because we were brought up with lullabies in a lot of different ways, but also it's contradicting too. Little pictures should be seen and not heard. So that was a really good point that you brought up there too, Barb. It's like we're in a new way of thinking, and you've been leading the way. It's an amazing work, an amazing discussion, because we always talk about how important our youth is, and your boots on the ground.
Yeah,
no, go ahead.
I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to, interrupt you. I'm watching a series on Netflix right now called Babies. And they are doing all this research, finding out how much babies really know. And it's really astonishing how much they know. I mean, way before that they can talk. They're studying, they put these little things all over the baby's head, and the baby could recognize different things, and the brain waves are going as they're seeing their mom. They're having a different reaction to when they see a stranger, and it's just really amazing. Yeah.
And you've been hanging out with our little niece too.
My great niece. Yeah, she just turned 8 months old, and she's just amazing. And my niece talks to her constantly and reads to her all the time. And I mean, she can't say any words. She just kind of babbles around.
But she recognized you because you were there every day.
Yeah, it's really funny. It's really just amazing how much babies and little children know, far beyond what we think that they do.
Well, Barb, I want to thank you for being on. Again, for more information, you can visit littlemomentscount.org. I really appreciate you being on and sharing this space with us.
Oh, miigwech, and we'll talk to you next month. And just go to the Little Moments Count website. You'll see a lot of information and resources there. So miigwech.
Pinagigi, thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Little Moments Count radio podcast in partnership with community radio stations throughout Minnesota. You can find the Little Moments Count radio podcast wherever you get your podcasts and at littlemomentscount.org/podcast.